Go.
Good morning. Today we're going to review and cover our literature focus unit. We will be reading the Polar Express and covering a variety of different California content standards as well as some of our teacher performance expectations. Let's take a look first at what content standards we're going to cover during this unit. It will be a 5-day unit at approximately 2.5 hours per day we're going to spend focusing on this. Some of our content standards that we'll cover: decoding and word recognition, reading comprehension. This is a strong emphasis in this unit. We're really trying to build with the students their ability to read the story and then go back and reiterate some of the things that took place in the story as well as sequencing. Comprehension and analysis of grade level text, a narrative analysis of grade level text, and then also spelling. We want to focus on the vocabulary in this unit, having them build their vocabulary as we go through, as well as some of their high frequency words. We also are really focusing on fluency in this unit throughout the entire thing. We will also cover some of our teacher performance expectations dealing with student engagement. We want the students very active in this unit and participating. Developing appropriate teaching practices. Want to make sure that what we're giving them is supportive, that they have the skills that they need to be able to complete the assignments. And interpretation and use of assessments. This unit will consist of a variety of different assessments throughout. As I mentioned, we're focusing on the Polar Express. This is a wonderful story by Chris Van Allsburg. And really the story focuses on one boy's journey. And it's his journey, it's a magical journey that takes him to the North Pole. And really it teaches about believing in something. So the unit will begin with an introduction of that. We all believe in very different things, and that's okay. But what's important is that sometimes we understand that we believe in something that's not tangible. It's not something we can see or touch, whether it's our belief in our own ability to do something or a belief in something as magical as this particular story portrays. Some of the objectives we'll cover: students will read the story with fluency and expression. This is a skill we're really focusing on this year, so we want to try and build their confidence in the story, so we will reread it quite a few times throughout the week. In addition, we're going to focus on figurative language. We've been dealing with that all year so far, but we really want to emphasize the figurative language that's used in this story and have the students begin using some of their own figurative language. And then they'll write a short narrative as well. Let's go ahead and walk through the 5 days of this unit. As I mentioned, we'll begin with an introduction of the story. And with this, we'll do a picture walk with the class. We want the students to look at the pictures and try to predict and infer what is going to happen in the story. As a result, we'll actually work as a group on a prediction chart. We will begin by filling out our events that we think are going to take place, as well as what we think is going to happen in the story. We'll fill out the first 2 as a group, and then the students will continue this in their literacy center. We will then listen to an audio recording of the story. This provides the students an opportunity to hear that fluency, hear the expression of the narrator. After that, we're going to cover our vocabulary. This story has some pretty tough vocabulary for the students, so we're going to spend some time focusing on the definitions of that vocabulary, having the students write in their journals what those words are, the definitions, and then we'll also model using them in a sentence for the students. In addition, because we do have quite a few English language learners and struggling students in this class, we'll spend some time, especially during our literacy centers, focusing on using pictures to help define that vocabulary even further. We'll then break out into, we'll do a choral read of the story and break out into our literacy centers. There they will complete the prediction chart. They're also going to read a nonfiction book called Trains and come up with 5 things that they pulled from that story, 5 facts about it. They will receive their vocabulary list with the definitions for further studying. And then in addition, they're going to complete a story map. This begins to set the stage for our comprehension of the story. So those are all things that they'll complete within their literacy centers today. That'll take us through the end of this lesson for the first day. We'll begin day 2 by trying to recall at least 3 events that happened in the story. They will be able to reference their story maps that they did, so this should be a recollection of what they did the day before. We're also going to talk about reading comprehension and why it's so important when they're reading a story to have that as part of their fluency. We will reread the story again, as I mentioned. We're going to do a lot of choral reading in this to try and build that fluency. We'll review the vocabulary again. And then in our literacy centers, we're going to accomplish a variety of different things today. We're going to begin with some comprehension questions. These are based on Bloom's taxonomy. So we'll begin with knowledge, go into comprehension, and then application. So those will be the 6 questions that they focus on today in that unit. And then we also are going to have one group that focuses on sequencing activity. They'll rotate through that. And basically what they'll do is, I have a variety of different sentences down here. They're going to cut those out and paste them in the appropriate sequence. And then when they're done with that, they will then rotate into a vocabulary center where they write 3 sentences using those vocabulary words, And then remember, yesterday we modeled how to do that, so today they'll take that modeling of what they captured in their writing journals and write 3 sentences of their own. That'll take us into day 3. Day 3, we're going to introduce figurative language. And this is something we've been talking about throughout the year, but we're really going to emphasize how the figurative language is used in this story. In doing so, as a group, we're going to complete a figurative language chart where we talk about the figurative language versus plain language and how figurative language really enhances our writing. It brings it to life and it makes it exciting for the reader. So we'll focus on doing that, and then we're going to introduce the writing assignment, which is going to be my journey on the Polar Express. Each of the students will write a 3-paragraph essay on what their journey would be and how they'd change the story if the steam engine had shown up outside of their door. In our literacy centers today, we'll focus on completing a figurative language worksheet. We'll also finish our comprehension questions, so we'll go through again. Questions 7 through 12 will be completed today. This also, again, we continue our Bloom's taxonomy with analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So again, focusing some energy on that comprehension for sure. And then in order to prepare for their writing, they're going to complete a graphic organizer, beginning, middle, end, to just begin organizing their thoughts for how the writing assignment's going to go. So that'll be their pre-writing, and then they'll begin drafting their stories today. Once again, I'll be working in a small group with the English language learners and some of the struggling students to begin helping with that pre-writing section and give them some modeling some of that, how to do that. Day 4, we're going to review our vocabulary list and then take our vocabulary assessment test. We want to get that completed immediately after reviewing the vocabulary, where it's still very fresh in the minds. And we're also going to spend some time reviewing high-frequency words today. We see a lot of them, such as would, was, in, things like that in this story, so we want to draw some attention to that and review those with the students and focus on our word wall. Make sure we're using that as we're writing our stories. In our literacy centers, I will meet individually with each student and rotate through the students to provide feedback on their story. I will have reviewed all of their graphic organizers the night before and their pre-writes to be able to put some comments and help them understand those comments. Then we'll revise the stories and be working with partners in the Literacy Center to read their stories to them and get feedback from their classmates. And then we'll also do an author's chair. Students can start to share their stories with the class. This will take us to day 5 of our unit, and in this lesson today, we will do a quick review of the story first, and then our assessment. The assessment will consist of multiple choice questions, as well as some fill-ins and drawing a picture and illustration of what took place in the story. And then I have a wonderful surprise for the students. We're going to board the Polar Express and watch the movie. Once we complete the movie, as a group, we'll talk about how oftentimes a piece of literature, they make a movie out of it. And we want to compare and contrast the differences between the story and the movie. What happened in the book that may not have happened in the movie or been reflected well in the movie, or vice versa. So we'll talk a little bit about that concept. And then in the Literacy Center, they'll complete a compare and contrast chart of what was different and what was the same. I also have a series of stories that they can read regarding that really emphasize the use of figurative language to reinforce that concept to them of what was important in this unit. And then I'm going to have them draw a quick illustration and write one sentence using their vocabulary words. We had some very fun vocabulary words. And then we'll conclude it by writing one sentence stating what gift they would have asked for and drawing an illustration to accompany that gift as well. And that will be the conclusion of our literacy unit, our literature focus unit on the Polar Express.